Lewiston Public Works Advisory Commission's regular meeting, October 11th, 2023 at the Bell Building. So the first on our agenda, other than the call, is citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the commission on agenda items or other items they wish to bring into the attention of the commission or staff. Comments may be made, 1, in person, 2, by emailing publicworks@cityoflewiston.org, or 3, by calling 208-746-1316, extension 6, and leaving a message. Comments submitted by email or by phone will be forwarded to the Public Works Advisory Commission. And if you would like your comments to be read out loud during the meeting, please so indicate that in your message. Next up on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these issues unless a member so requests, in which case the item will be moved from the consent agenda and considered under Section 5, items moved from the consent agenda. Do we have? Yeah, we have a quorum today. So, okay, approval of August 9th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Question, and I'm not sure who to kind of, I thought we did have a quorum for that meeting to approve, because we don't have 6 people right now, we only have 5. And we had 3 present that day, so are we okay, or is it because they consider 6, you have to have 4?
I believe it's how many members you have in present, so you have 5, so a quorum is 3.
Okay.
Not total seats available.
Right, so we did have a quorum, because we had 3 people present, I thought.
Yes, we did. Or
So I was just wanting clarification on
Clarify
that,
that,
because I was going back through that, I said, because it says, 6, but we don't have 6 members at this point, voting members
I
at
might
this
be wrong.
point.
Maybe it is the
So-
whole 6, but I was under the impression that was just however many members have been appointed.
do you remember that we had 3 voting members at that time?
I believe we did. Anyway, I mean, I just wanted, if someone could bring clarification to the next meeting, I mean, obviously, we can go ahead and vote on it now, but I was just kind of curious about that.
Thank you for bringing that up. Any other comments on the August 9th meeting minutes? Okay, so do I have get approval on that?
Move to approve the August 9th meeting minutes.
Okay, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes. Now approval of the September 13th, 2023 meeting minutes. Did we all have time to review that?
I just had a question on the minutes. In particular was active agenda items, the Clearwater composting yard, and Director Johnson had done a great job going through all the intricacies and all the hurdles that we're gonna have to, to work through. And I remember that he had recommended saying, he was thinking about doing just the 2-year contract. But after we kind of listened to everything and we talked about it, I thought towards the end, we kind of said, well, we all kind of felt at that point, a 5-year, giving enough time to go through that. And I know it kind of wasn't kind of reflected in there. And so I didn't know if the group felt that we should just say, we just kind of felt 5 years would give the director enough time to get everything that needed to be done accomplished, because there was a lot of different things based on the 2 different agreements, one for the biosolids and then one for the green waste. So that was just something to throw out there. If the group agrees or not, then we can just pass as is.
I just want to clarify that in the contract itself, the term renewal is for 5 years.
Right.
That was where the director did not know the fine details of the contract, that it actually stipulates a 5-year there's 2
Right.
5-year extensions in
Correct.
there. And so Vice Chair Kelly identified that because he had read it the day before.
And then I thought you'd mentioned you were still gonna discuss maybe
Yep.
doing a 2-year.
Yep,
And so we kind of said, well, why not just do the
I think we'll
the
go with the
5?
5-year.
yeah. We actually met with them yesterday, so
Okay, good,
that's
good.
the direction we're moving.
Thank you very much. So approval of the September 13, 2023 meeting minutes. Did we already approve it?
No, we
No,
have
I
not
didn't think we
approved it. I put in there if we should make an amendment to the agenda minutes, and there was no one there to do that, and Kevin's not here because he was the other one that had brought it up towards the end, because I said at the end that I had agreed with him. So at this point, I'll just kind of withdraw and we can approve at this point.
We have a first and second on that?
I'll motion to approve since I was here. He was not, they
that's
were
right.
not, so.
So I can do that, okay? I'll second that. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I keep forgetting to do that. All right, thank you. Moving on to the active agenda. The 2020 Lewiston Transportation Plan continued. This is a continuation of the overview of the 2020 Lewiston Transportation Plan Resolution 2021 through 12. First introduced at the September 13, 2023 meeting. And Mr. Luke gets to present for us. Thank you. I thought that's what you were doing when I walked in. I thought, oh, wow, I'm really late.
Yeah, no, you were right on time. Let's see, get it total, sharing that. Aaron will have to correct it if it's wrong. All right, so the last meeting, Alana took you all through the transportation plan, through the first, second, and third sections, and most of the way through the fourth section. I'm not planning on doing any rehearsal on that. If there's any questions back up in there that we need to cover, we can pop back up there. Otherwise, we'll grab where we left off and continue on, which we left off around page 22 in the pavement preservation needs. So I'm gonna scroll down to that page. We'll take off from there. And the group discussed a bit about, the PCI ratings and what those look like, and that, of course, it's the goal to get back to a pavement when it starts to downgrade and then raise that PCI back up to something preferably over 80, and maintain that level where it comes down, and then you do some sort of preservation, bring it back up, and then let it coast down. And then we'll get into some more of the details of why that is farther down here. So this page shows more about the cost savings involved, and I'm gonna try to zoom in a little bit and highlight this graph. Without breaking something. So in the chart here, it shows per lane mile, so that's a 14-foot wide, mile-long piece of road, is a lane mile. What the cost was at the time of the plan for a treatment, whether it's a slurry seal, seal coat, cold mix overlay, hot mix overlay, or reconstruction. And you can see that the costs just climb very rapidly as you go down the list. So where we're able to, we like to come in and do a seal coat, and then seal coat again, maybe possibly do an overlay. You can kind of see the progression of the cost across this orange line. That's if we're doing a pavement preservation the way we should. Now, say we don't do any pavement preservation and we follow the red line and we go roughly 20 years and everything falls apart, we have to reconstruct it. The cost jumps up, we have to let it go for 20 years, we have to reconstruct, and then it jumps over. So this is just a graphical representation of the costs associated with maintaining pavement through the two options. You can either preserve it or you can just reconstruct it after it falls apart. And you can see the cost savings here in this blue. The red, should we reconstruct it all the time, was roughly $6 million. The orange line, if we preserve it as we should is about 3.5, which results in $2.5 million savings over the life of a pavement. And this is stretching it out to 60 years, which is pretty doable if we have a robust pavement management system program. So that's there.
That's
Here's,
not a- Is that adjusted for inflation or not? It looks like the numbers are pretty constant.
nope, those are just straight numbers, just as a graphical representation of what it would be. It's not getting into the weeds and, doing inflation, just straight numbers. And that's on a 4-lane mile high volume road, so that's 1 mile long. So that's roughly, on a 2-lane mile, the savings would be in that 1.9 region. So that's just a good representation of why we maintain a pavement management system and program, is that keeps the costs as low as they possibly can be if we're touching that road every so often and keeping that pavement preserved, as opposed to just letting it go. Those costs go way higher, and we would need to collect more revenue from our citizenry to be able to continue that. Wait, is there a way to raise this?
Is it?
Okay. Okay, so there's that graph. Any further questions or conversation to be had on that?
How often again do you do the pavement management assessment? How often do you guys go through and double check to see where the roads are?
So up until now, it's been roughly every 3 years. A third of the city was getting assessed every year. We, this last year, tried a new system with technology mounted on a vehicle, and that vehicle drove every single road in town and assessed all of the pavement. We just got the data back from that, and nobody's seen it yet. We're still trying to get into our system so we can view it and analyze it.
New
But
software system or a new?
into our software, yeah.
It's an assessment of the system.
Right.
And
Okay.
so once we get that in place, then we'll be able to take that data and look at the system as a whole that's been evaluated almost at the same time, within the same span of time. So we'll have a good overall picture of pavement condition indexes. We don't have that data yet. It's not viewable yet, but we should have that soon.
We have the data, we just haven't done anything.
You haven't
We
done
got
all
it.
the, you haven't done the analysis and
Well, we got
compared
it
that.
Monday.
I think this week,
Yesterday.
And how often are you gonna do
I
that
got it
new,
You got it yesterday?
how often are you gonna do that kind of drive-bys?
We'll see how it turned out, right? Like we're gonna take the data that we got, see if it makes sense, do some double checks of our own.
My goal is still to continue to do at least all of the network every 3 years.
Challenge is to get the right consultant or eyeballs on the road. Same problem we have with all of our contractors, consultants. If it's something specialized like this, it's hard to get the person that was doing it was out of Spokane, right?
Correct.
And we just couldn't get them to consistently come and do it, so we had to
Yeah.
change the method in which we were doing it.
I think I'd mentioned last time, robotics is a type of company that, you download all that data, you can just drive it, take that off of your phone or whatever, download it, and, and then they, you can compare it year to year, pretty.
Yeah,
I'll be
this
curious.
little niche of pavement assessment has grown substantially in the last even 5 years, just what machine learning and smart, they can do so much more than even just 5 years ago, as far as it used to have to manually do all this stuff, and now we're getting.
So it's so
technology.
helpful for, yeah.
Which makes it cheaper.
Yes,
Yes, it does, as more people use it. And there is a big push within cities to begin using this type of software more and more, which, of course, increases the market and moves us all forward.
Just for, and not to jump in here too much, but
Go ahead.
if you go back up to the pictures, the city has, in our strategic plan, up to the pictures of the pavement, our strategic plan was to have our PCI at 80. So you can see, if your PCI is not, if your citywide is 90, you're probably spending too much money. So you can see what 75 looks like. Our strategic plan, which was adopted by the previous Public Works Director, was 80, which seems like a good number. Our number came back, the data that we've gotten says we're at 77. So I think that's great. I'm really excited about that number, that if we said our strategic plan, our goal was 80 and it came back at 57, we'd be in a world of hurt. So I think without analyzing the data yet to see specifically what areas of town, what classification of streets are at high or low, 77 I think is a decent number for us. And again, this is all rough data. We haven't gone back and looked at it, so I've done these before and we've adjusted it because just the way they were doing it. I don't think we'd have to do it this one because it's gotten better, but rough draft data right now says we're at a 77.
Was that before or after the summer construction period?
That was before. When did they run those numbers?
That was done in May and June.
Yeah, so that was early
Right
on,
before
so,
the big rainstorm.
yeah, so, oh yeah, right to the left, right when it rained. Yeah, so the work that we've done on, or will have completed on 21st Street by next spring may improve those numbers. They will improve the numbers, but how much impact they will have, we won't know yet.
Matt, Dustin, can you go back to that one with the surfaces? Just so I have it in my mind again. Is it 21st Street doesn't have the aggregate base?
Correct, yes,
Very little.
So
very
it's
little.
Pavement and then roadway subgrade pretty much.
Yeah, and that somewhat oversimplifies because, there's the material, then there's compaction, and then as you can see, you have, if there's water that can get into it, will freeze thaw and further degrade your sub base. And so when we did some utility work in 21st Street, probably a year ago now, and had that trench open, and it did not look like anything like that. It was something I'd never seen before, where it was a lot of asphalt and then river cobble. The cobble seemed to be compacted, okay, but it was not what you would not construct it to that standard anymore.
So the material itself that they used as an aggregate is not
I would
what
say,
would
I don't know if
we-
could you tell when you looked in there if they even used?
It looked like it was native material.
Yeah, so they just built asphalt on top of native material.
And that's not uncommon for roads to be built that way that are so old. I mean, newer roads are built different because we have different standards. Back in the day, they didn't have standards like we do now. So they just used what was there and what was cheap.
What you find in a lot of these places that are historic, Lewiston is over 100 years old. They didn't really worry about these standards in 1910 because they didn't have the axle loads that they do now. And so particularly everything from the orchards to 21st Street, where they put, it was dirt road first on top of river cobble, then they kind of built it up and it's now asphalt, but what's below there hasn't changed ever. So, and like Jason said, in a new subdivision or we reconstruct Bryden, you're gonna go down however far the geotechnical engineers tell you to, and then build a subsection like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the importance of that graphic is showing the criticality of keeping moisture out of the subgrade, out of the aggregate base. Anytime we have a crack in the pavement, that's a bad thing. That means our pavement's gonna degrade that much further. So hence the push to have a pavement management system that is sealing up our roads regularly and keeping the water on the surface, because if it does go down into the base, then that's when more expensive repairs are required as the water over time degrades the condition of the asphalt.
Decent base below the asphalt.
Yes, decent base helps, and then when you don't have base, that makes it all that much more difficult. Okay, so that gets us through section 4. Any questions about, any more questions about that? Okay. All right, moving into section 5 then. So section 5 is all about how do we get there. So this plan is drawn off of all of these plans listed out here. So all the way back to 2008, it kind of tried to reach back and pull all of these into this master plan. And so there's a significant amount of studies that's been done, and just trying to combine all of that knowledge into one place so that we had a more thorough document here. we still reach back into these as we need details and things like that, because they are more in-depth than this single document is. However, this document does a great job of summarizing them and kind of giving us a path. Let's see. So now that we've got a plan, what do we do with it? Obviously, the biggest hurdle to any construction is funding it. Whether you're constructing your own home, a shed in the backyard, or a multi-million-dollar street, first you gotta have the money in place before you start tearing things up. So this plan kind of outlines some new projects, some corridors that had not been identified in plans before. This is not a summary list, I think this was just the new ones that they had brought up, as well as some new intersections that are listed off. And then a big focus of this plan was kind of bringing in the bicycle and ped-focused projects as well, and trying to get them all put into one place, so as we are redoing sections of roadway, we can address all the modes of transportation. So another map, it's kind of difficult to see on this screen, but there's crossings listed that were studied. There's proposed pathways. Let's see if we can find a green line somewhere. Here's a green line. Is that one? So there's various places around town where, those projects we just saw on the previous screen are kind of called out here on the map just for a visual. This is handy for my staff and I, as we plan projects, we can come to a graphic like this, take a quick look at the area we're at, and pull it into project, or dig deeper, depending on whatever the case is. And we have some non-capital improvements called out here as well, and whenever we can get more information, more data, pump it into the system, into our own brains, so that we make better decisions, that's the route we want to be going down. One of the big things on here is monitoring, right? Like keep an eye on the system and make sure that actually looks better. Keep an eye on the system and make sure that we're not missing things as the system develops, because the plan is now almost 4 years old, and obviously a lot has changed in the last 4 years. There's been quite a bit of development of new houses, new subdivisions, new businesses, and that shifts how traffic patterns work. So we just need to always have a thumb on it. Studies and plans, there's a number of studies recommended for us. The truck route study, right-of-way assessment study, trying to pare down where we have too much right-of-way and trying to point out where we need more right-of-way in the future. There are areas where you have a big old swath of right-of-way through an area where there is very limited chance that we'll actually need to expand the street that much. And so this is just recommending that we have someone take a look at that and give us a path forward. The access management plan, I think this is a really big one. That one, we're biting off a piece of it right now through the MPO. They're doing a Thane Road corridor study for, and access management is a big part of that. Everyone's, I think, driven Thane Road and knows a big hindrance to progress going down that road safely is the number of accesses and times people are wanting to turn off in front of you, be it left or right? Like that just halts traffic, you hit your brakes. A lot of times you can't see it coming because the guy in front of you's got big pickup, you're in a car, and all of a sudden you're hitting your brakes because you didn't see it coming. So one goal of this access management plan is to reduce the number of connections to the roadway so you have fewer points that people are trying to turn off. It consolidates the turning movements then and makes it a safer roadway. Multimodal river crossings, the new bridge across the Clearwater, the Memorial Bridge, the new bridge will address that. There will be space for more than one person to walk across it. And then also head and bicycle movements as well.
What's the timeline for that one?
Which one?
The memorial?
2 years. 2 years.
Yeah.
So roughly 20. 10 to 25, I think, is what they were projecting.
That's a state project though.
I'm sorry?
That's a
not
state
our
project.
It's still important.
It is important. We're very thankful that
It
it's
is
on
very
us.
We're very thankful.
Great.
Glad that's a state project. I tried to give them back Main Street the other day and they didn't, they want to take it.
Can you make this a state project? It should be Highway 12. Can't we go back to when it was?
All right.
They said no.
Darn,
Yeah.
good try.
Corridor studies, you can see Thane Grade is one of those on there. 21st Street, everyone's aware that we're attempting to get some preservation done there to preserve that street, get it in better condition so it'll last longer. The Thane Grade study is, again, something through the MPO that they're able to fund for us, which is great. We'll see what comes out of that plan. And then you can read the list here. There is no shortage of work to be done in Lewiston.
How easily, I'm trying to find that for like, I'm trying to act as if I was a citizen just looking for this. Can they find this easily?
Well, that depends on if you know what you're looking for. So
Okay.
I went to Google and I typed in City of Lewiston master plans.
Okay.
And Aaron and I had this conversation before the meeting started. The links that come up don't take you to our page. For whatever reason, the link that comes up is clicked more than the actual page. I don't know why that is, but it's a broken link, and so we're gonna try to get that corrected.
Okay.
For now, if you wanted to find it, you would go to the City of Lewiston website, underneath Government and Departments over here, come down to Public
I
Works,
was almost there.
come down to Public Works, and then scroll down to Master Plans. We've got a whole list of things that we work on here.
Okay, because I know that we have like a list of what the future looks like and things that we have, you know, that we're aware of. And so I know a lot of people will be like, why aren't you worried about this road? Well, we are, but this is where the timeline is, so.
And here's a plug for stormwater. We are spamming everybody right now. If you click the link on our page, we're gonna,
I liked that. I
Yeah,
saw
throw
that.
it
That was
up.
good.
I do have a question about that later, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. I just was like, I cannot find it. Why can't I find it?
Yeah, and I'm trying to get to the master plans. There we go. So here's the master plan site, and it's got all of our master plans there. Some of these you'll recognize were pulled off of for the transportation plan we're looking at currently.
Okay.
And I probably should have showed that to everybody on Zoom, but I didn't. If you have questions, get a hold of Public Works. We can get you to that page quickly.
With all these studies, is there a timeline that you have, like as far as prioritizing and when they're expected to be done or when you're working on?
I would not say that there's a specific timeline. We kind of bite them off as we get funding and as we are able to construct things. Some of these are current because they haven't had significant construction done out of them. They could be 10 years old, but if we haven't done a whole lot of work out of them, then they're still current. The master plan is designed to kind of collect those and point us in one direction for all the modes of transportation. That's kind of what we've been reviewing, but there's not a specific timeline. So much of it, again, boils down to funding.
Are these mostly funded with grants or with city money for?
So it's a combination. A lot of the grants require some type of match, and then also there's been city funds used to fund various studies, like the downtown master plan that we recently did. We kind of call it the plan of plans for downtown. Was funded with local dollars because we needed someone to take all the information we had about downtown and put it in one place, and give us a recommendation on how to move forward with all of it. So that's what that is. I would say currently the city of Lewiston has done a really good job of getting some solid plans in place. There's more to be done, of course, as we update things. But the big focus now is finding funding sources and beginning construction. Once we start knocking off some of these big projects that we've got looming over us, then it'll make more sense to dig into some more studies and things like that. The the CIP, which is the next item on the agenda, kind of helps give us a roadmap of, we're going this direction. In order to do this project, here's the next thing we need. And we try to tick those off as we have funds available. It talks about education programs in here, just the importance of making sure people know how to be safe and promoting bicycle safety, those types of ideas, having standards for requirements for new development, and then of course transportation management, and making sure that we have a program in place to be able to do traffic counts and kind of have our pulse on that traffic flow like we were talking about.
Is there a street safety program here?
Not a formal one, I don't.
Okay.
We're putting
Is it MPO that has that?
Yeah, we have a grant through the MPO that we're putting together one right now. It's a regional one, so it's the entire valley, but
Okay, so there's not one like where you go and work with the schools, you do like little bike rodeos and all those types of things and teach them about safety and, okay.
not through the city, no.
Not through Public Works.
Do you, and then for other education programs for, just families and stuff, have you gotten anything from the NHTSA, the National stuff that you get to? They're excellent programs and grants.
All right, so continuing the idea of how do we get there, the transportation CIP, which I just mentioned a second ago, is clearly a very big piece of this. Earlier in the document, when Alana was here, you went through kind of the timeline of reviewing the CIP, public comment, staff revising, council approving, more public comment in there. And that's the formal process that was put in place with this plan to be able to make sure the public has a consistent method of being able to input into the plan. So anytime someone says, well, why haven't you fixed X, Y, Z? I love to point them towards our form and say, can you please fill out that form and let us know about it? Because there are streets where we just, because we're a limited number of people, we don't see them, and sometimes are unaware of the need. So anytime we can get more information from the public, we are big advocates for that. It's very helpful. This kind of goes through how the CIP was formed. Lots of public input. And then, let's see, it talks about, I'm trying to find where it talks about the categories. Public opinion, project types. There's a large list in here of the various types of projects, whether it's everything from access related to turning lanes, parking, patching. It kind of gives you a definition of any of the projects we might do on the roadway. Not going to go through each of those. Here it is, okay. So, getting to applying the PPC.
The acronym is for?
I looked that up earlier too.
Public participation.
Got it.
So here's the criteria. The 5 categories are mobility, safety, livability, responsible governance, and economic vitality. Those categories were weighted and then defined, and those then weights or scores were applied for each project. And out of that system came the current list that we have, which is in your packet, which I'm not going to review as part of this presentation, but when we jump into the next agenda item, we'll go through it in more detail. But just those are the 5 factors that are weighted and scored for each project to assign them their place on the CIP. And then getting into the toolbox of how to make our streets better and safer. These are all options for that. So everything from better lighting to the number of attachments to the street can all help. And then also having a plan in place for multi-modes so that we're giving, like you can see on the bump out here, getting a pedestrian farther into the street before they try to cross is a big benefit. This one doesn't have a crosswalk on it, but and also serves to slow traffic down because they feel more constrained. So those are just simple items that help manage the traffic. Again, moving into funding for how to move forward. This is the biggie. The bulk of our funding is currently going into preservation. Council, how many years ago, Dustin, started saving for more arterial projects?
2 years ago.
2 years
We're
ago.
on year 2 or 3.
Council elected to begin regularly putting in, I believe, 700.
Started at 750 when we paid off the police retirement.
Yeah.
Whole separate fund that we used to have to pay into. We got it to a point where it was okay, and so then they diverted those funds into the arterial reconstruction. And then additionally, council this year put in 1.6 into the.
Yes.
So just in the last 3 years, we've seen council step up and start recognizing you can wait for the miracle grant to fall out of the sky, or you can start funding it yourself. And so, and it doesn't, you can't say, 21st Street, $14 to $22 million doesn't happen overnight for at least a municipality our size. So by putting in, every penny counts, but as you start putting in millions of dollars, it helps you do the things that we're talking about here.
Yeah, and so the reason I pointed that out is at the time of this plan, that savings routine hadn't been started yet. So this plan says, basically, we've got these revenue sources that are going into operations and maintenance, and then for actual capital improvement projects, we essentially had our STP funds, which is our federal allotment of funds, which didn't amount to much, I believe. Does it say in here? It was in the neighborhood of 400,000.
Yeah, 350 there.
350. So there wasn't a whole lot of investment into those arterial reconstructions. It took a long time to get enough money saved to do a project, and that's why our arterials have kind of slipped. Since then, again, council wisely has taken some initiatives, started saving, and we're getting those funds now in place and kind of trying to align the ship towards, hey, let's take care of our arterials too.
And with the stormwater now, that is also doing the funds better as well, right? Because you were having to share some of that responsibility.
Yeah, that's a sticky wicket to discuss, but yeah, I mean, not discuss, it's, those funds will be a utility fund that will go specifically for stormwater and maintenance of that system, which means the street surface transportation dollars don't have to do that, which is what they've been doing in the past. So
So it's freeing up those dollars.
it's freeing up those
That-
dollars.
that's
It's people could argue that, that it's not that those stormwater dollars are gonna fix your streets, it's now that those stormwater dollars being dedicated to stormwater infrastructure means we have more funds for surface transportation, maintenance, and reconstruction, so.
Other revenue sources are, of course, the grants. Those are not a guarantee, and I was actually very surprised with the success Lewiston has had in putting together some very solid projects out of the grant program. Staff has done a great job in the past of getting those dollars and keeping them cycling through Lewiston on a regular basis. But frankly, it just wasn't quite enough to, again, keep up with, say, the arterial roads.
Sorry, we have a new grant writer, don't we? We just or not been with the city that long.
Yeah,
Couple years now.
Melinda.
Yeah, Cause I know, I've heard that she's fights hard for it, so I've
She
heard
does. She
good
does a
things
good
about
job.
her, so, on that.
What's challenging, and not to go down the rabbit hole, what's challenging specifically Transportation Alternative Program, TAP or LSIP, a lot of these are very engineering, and so Melinda's has helped us, but these are so very specific to, I wouldn't even necessarily consider they are grants technically, but they're not, like, Melinda does a lot of work for police and fire and parks. Those are what I would think is, grants, and you can talk about community outreach. These are, like the LSIP it's basically a spreadsheet that you punch in data and then you turn it in. And so she helps us a lot, but to think that a grant writer would trip us over, it will increase our odds of getting them, but it won't be like, oh, well, we got a grant writer, so we're gonna get all of these now. These are more technical.
It's basically the numbers though, so whatever,
all about
whatever the
numbers.
numbers are, if they don't match what they wanna see, then you're not gonna get the grant.
LSIP is exactly that.
For LSIP, yeah. The TAP grant, TAP provides opportunity more for tug at your heartstrings types of stories.
it's
Same
for
thing
the-
with child ped.
It's for the children.
It's for the children, which genuinely
Send
it is a lot of
pictures
times.
with kids trying to cross the street.
Exactly.
That's gold.
Like-
So, our
Come on.
our child ped grant for this last year, was 19th between 15th and 16th streets. So 19th Avenue between 15th and 16th, there by McSorley, if I got that street right. There was a section there that just had never had sidewalk installed because it was really expensive to do so. It required retaining walls and was difficult. So the project, through our child ped grant this last round, we were able to get that one block completed for, I think, $200,000, almost $300,000. So, I mean, that just gives you an idea of how much it costs to build one block of sidewalk, curb and gutter, and an asphalt extension. Especially when there's significant retaining wall involved. Obviously, we're in for the long haul. It takes a long time to accumulate funds and be able to point ourselves in the right direction. The plan kind of goes through some numbers here about if you stick with just STP funds, how long it takes to kind of cycle through our CIP plan. It's a good analogy, but it's obviously the real application of that plays out in the everyday life of how many grants can we actually get, how much funding is available to put towards transportation projects, and that is what will actually determine how fast we cycle through these. With that, I don't have anything further on the transportation master plan. Are there any questions? Yeah, Ryan.
Question quick, so if I understand, kind of what you were talking about before with the graphs, which with the replacement versus maintenance. So I would presume that the city's kind of currently in the position of deciding whether you want to go do those reconstructions, whether it's 21st Street or whatnot, or put those dollars toward. How are those? We know that the life cycle costs for preservation are lower, but clearly there's, it's kind of a push-pull to decide where those go. So are those the preservation and the capital improvement plan project, the capital projects, are they both provided? I think you're gonna get to the CIP. Both included in that and competing with each other, or how does that?
I don't think so. So the plan itself, and I would say each of our mentalities is pavement, preservation, and maintenance first. If you aren't preserving your existing pavement, then you're gonna fall behind and you'll bankrupt the kitty really quick. If you have to maintain your PCI. If you don't keep it up above a certain level and start letting it drop, then pretty quick you're belly up. So you need to fund adequate preservation first, and we track that through the PCI ratings, like we were just talking about the data. If that number starts to drift down, then we know, okay, we need to put more money towards this so that we keep our number up. So that's priority one, I would say. And then whatever's left after we're doing that well, then you start looking at capital, and checking off whatever you can. I think the city has done a really good job. I've only been here a couple of years, so I can't take much credit, but the city has done a really good job of maintaining a lot of lane miles of road. I think overall we've got, well, at the time of the writing of this report, there was 450 lane miles of road. So having a PCI in the neighborhood of 80 on that many lane miles means somebody was doing preservation really well. And so that program seems to be holding the line, so to speak. And so council has seen fit to begin taking additional funds and funneling them towards the capital side of things, because it's clear, capital-wise, we haven't made a whole lot of ground, even though we're getting projects done. People keep eyes on things like 21st Street and Bryden and those big names where we've got a lot of money to spend, even though we're getting projects done and things are getting built.
And this is your capital improvement, this is your master plan. And so when you go before council and you express that, you expect council to be receptive of that and do something. So, I certainly am, but we're going to be looking at a new council here soon. So the education part is going to be consistent.
Yeah, and it goes back to if it's council, if it's staff. I think there's a lot of, people are angst with property taxes and the expense of inflation and everything else. And I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. It was, the bulk of these roads that we drive on every day were not constructed to a current standard. And we have to reconstruct them if we want them to be, a viable arterial that can handle heavy truck traffic. So, and it's gonna cost money. So you can't reduce budgets and expect an increased level of service.
That, again, the education part is going to need to come along with all of this.
Yeah, the master plans kind of operate as our Bible. We take those and we say, well, this is the marching orders that we were given, and we're going to accomplish those until somebody gives us a different plan.
Oh, yes, sorry.
One more note really quick. So I guess I like to, I don't know if there's a way for this group to kind of support and promote that.
Yeah.
Maintenance and preservation, focus on that, because I wholeheartedly agree. It seems like sometimes when decisions are made in the political sphere, they aren't necessarily what's right. It's what get you reelected or whatnot. So
Yes.
certainly it seems like it's within the purview of this group to really push.
And do we have anything where we've projected that we would put out reports or advisory?
I think an avenue, going back to the pavement condition index report, I think once staff has had an opportunity to go back and forth with the consultant, we'll be coming back to this group and saying, here's the findings. And I specifically want to make sure, the narrative has been our arterials are in rough shape, but our local streets are in good shape. I haven't looked at the data to see if that's true, but I want to, parse out, is there a segment of the community, let's say Normal Hill, that they're terrible, that's, the pavement condition index is 60 there generally, and and to have this group kind of vet out, if you're gonna get your average up to 80, and we're closer than I thought we would be, which is great, but if you want to get this group to tell us and support or, come back with feedback to say, focus on this classification or this geographical area or, whatever the data comes back, and have this group kind of be our conscience to say, no, you're looking at it upside down or whatever. Engineers love data, but at some point we get strangled with it, and we need somebody to kind of help us funnel that direction, so.
No, that is the focus of this group, isn't it, to do this? And so, yes, I thank you for bringing that up, and we're gonna keep focused on that as you bring us things to do.
Yeah.
Well, can I just?
Of course.
Madam Chair, to kind of go back, and to kind of go back with what the Commissioner Rader was saying, as well as Director Johnson. Yes, engineers get a lot of data. Taking engineers' data and trying to put it out to the community is nothing personal, gentlemen, but I've been around. You just get data geeky. Don't worry about it. We love you for your data geeky. But for the rest of us, we kind of need it in layman's terms, and that's what the community. So sometimes, working through some of those things, the education component, as the Commissioner Rader was saying, I think that's gonna be very important. So having something come back so that we can be advocates and explain and be, supporters of that, I think are gonna be really critical. But it also goes back to something else that you both just brought up, which is the education of the new council. And so, and anybody running for the position so that they have, good information. And so I think that's where sometimes, the two roads don't kind of meet, so to speak. So trying to work on maybe something coming forward where, it's a kind of a good PR item that we can kind of look at. So, and the reason I say this is that sometimes you put things out and they kind of don't, the rest of the community's like, I have no clue what they're saying. And you need to run it past kind of like just normal people. And I don't mean that, in a bad way. It's just that sometimes your speakies is like way over our head and we just want you to kind of say, street's fine, it's okay, it's got 10 years. You don't need to say, well, it's got a payment index of such and such, and that means, we've met our goal of, so maybe we can kind of help work with that, because I think then that might get more support and understanding for that ongoing maintenance, because that's the problem, and having had to do that for so long, getting people to understand pavement maintenance and how critical it is and what it does and how long the preservation really truly works it's very tough to get the community. But once they kind of get it, then they'll support you more in putting more dollars into pavement management that way.
And to expand on that, the knowledge of what you're already dealing with, so how bad 21st Street is, how many times I've heard people be like, compare that road to another road that has already been put to our standards today, which those are, to me, like apples and oranges, because it's like, well, that's not built to standards today. And so they're like, well, if they can maintain this road, why can't they maintain 21st the same? And so explaining that aspect and getting the public to really understand what the hurdles we're having as a city with that road, I think is gonna be and even our counselor, because I listened to the candidates forum for the Women League of Voters.
Well, I went to last night's.
Oh, you did? And so,
Didn't change much.
there's misinformation there, and comparing roads, and so, like she says, and having those new councils come in and having that information. And for me, I mean, having that picture, I was like, okay, like now I'm kind of starting to see it, but a lot of times it was hard for me to learn all this because I don't know anything about roads until I came into this position. So kind of getting into that layman's terms, I think is really gonna help figure out ways that we can help people metabolize it better.
Thank you on that, and I think we'll make that one of our very good goals. Thank you. Are you all done? We like you talking.
I'm not until you tell me to start.
No, we want you to keep talking.
I don't know if there's anything that needs to be done to move to the next item, but the next item is the CIP.
Oh, I guess so. Sorry about that. Item B on this is 2024 Transportation CIP update. And this is an overview of the currently adopted Transportation Capital Improvement Plan and the annual updated process.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we have already covered how we got this document, the public input process, council approval, all of that. You will note, if you went back into history a little bit, you would see that Main Street and D Street used to be, I went too far, I think, 5th on the list. My memory's a little fuzzy. I think it was around 5th, right below Brighton, I think. And as we brought this before council, the council elected to take Main Street and D Street and from farther down the list and put it at the top of the list. That was outside of, the engineer's criterion that we talked about inside of the master plan, but that's within council's purview. If they, as the people's representatives, see a project that is more important than, you know, just what the data shows, then they can take it and they can rearrange this list for us. And so they did that last year and put Main Street and D Street towards the top. And so that is now a very important project for us. It was before, but now we're taking a closer look at that and figuring out what needs to get in place to get that project completed, especially since 21st Street has a project going on currently. Yes?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt right in the middle of your thought, but just because we move this doesn't mean that you're still not looking for funding for the other projects and they can come ahead of this.
Correct.
It cannot?
No, you were correct.
You're-
Oh, okay,
Yes,
you're
you were
shaking your
correct.
head no, so-
Shaking no, yes.
Him going yes and him going no.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing, I'm like, okay,
happening?
I'm
No,
lost.
they will not move ahead. Yes, you are correct in your statement.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
and I thought that was the case, but I think we also need the public to know that, even
Yeah.
though we put that, and I know why council did that, because that is something that we're going to have, it's gonna be a long time, anyway. So I just wanted to clarify the fact that just because it's in first place, doesn't mean we're gonna stop all other projects. We're gonna wait for what money comes in and do what we can with that money.
Right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I really appreciate that clarification.
An example of that would be, we've got the pedestrian safety grant.
Yes.
We're gonna go down this list. Nothing on this list would qualify for a pedestrian grant. So we're gonna cycle through and then we'll get, first one might be number 20, but that's what the grant, it fits the criteria of the grant. Doesn't mean we're not gonna apply for it because it's on page 2 or 3. It's just that was the first one that met the criteria. And we'll use that as our guiding.
That's another big one that
Yes.
is under understandings from public, because they're like, why are they focusing on this road? They should be focusing over here and not understanding. Sometimes we just take where the money will take us and start checking stuff off the
All of
list,
these
so.
grants have criteria, and if, you know, we can apply for Main Street for a pedestrian safety grant, but it's only gonna award 100,000, and it's for, you know, it doesn't
doesn't do
achieve the
enough.
goal. It doesn't get us to $12 million.
I will say though, I know you guys have tried and have had open houses and then have not had a lot of public show up, so I get the struggle there when you're trying to get the information across and then with people aren't showing up, it can be hard, so.
Yeah, we're very thankful when the public does show up because it helps inform our list and sometimes, again, brings things to light that we weren't aware of, so appreciate people coming out. So another example would be on this list, 21st Street is already moving forward, Bryden Avenue, you know, there's kind of a course set for Bryden, and we're not gonna scrap all of those just because, you know, Main Street is now number 1, unless council says, yeah, no, we're not doing that, which would be when we bring, you know, the next step forward for those.
Excuse me, just one moment. Did you have a question?
Well, yeah, I guess my question, it was more trying to understand how these projects are funded as far as the capital goes. Is there a, you know, out of the whole city budget, is there like, say, $5 million a year that goes to these capital improvements, and then you can kind of make a multi-year plan that way, or is it?
That would be awesome.
Don't look at me. That's what I was trying to say. Don't look at me.
Let's go for $5 million a year.
It looked like it was 350 before, so some of these projects, if you're gonna try to come up with $12 million, I mean, that's.
Yeah, you just hit on the key thing, and that's funding. In the past, before, you know, council sort of started taking steps to build the savings account and point in that direction, it would have taken a really long time to start cycling through some of these.
Yeah, even still, if I remember right, it was like 1.75 million or something like that is what's allocated this year. I mean, that you're still 8 years at least before you can knock any of the larger projects off here, and that's one at a time, so there's.
Unless we get grants, or a bond.
Yeah, there's options out there.
And once it's approved, is there, I mean, you can roll it over from year to year too, right? It's, I mean, once it's.
Build off of that, or we can even bond off that revenue.
If it stays, I know, because things can change with the new council, if I understand it, if in the next budget they decide,
yeah.
oh, no, we don't want to put that money there anymore, and we're gonna move it over here, that's not ideal, and we would hope that wouldn't happen, but that could happen depending on what the other councils would have for priority.
I wanted to kind of get back to education because, you know, from before, trying to get people to understand things. This is an area, obviously, council has a tough time, and it sounds like, you know, even Commissioner, like, when I first looked at it, I was like, okay, so where's the money? And what funds do you have towards it, and, you know, what's kind of the timelines and things like that, because, I've kind of been down one of these roads before where council members had tons of questions and, you know, wanting to know where was the money, you know, how, because you want kind of, and so in a past life working for a director who was kind of going through that, they went and kind of blew up their CIP a little bit. And the big thing, because they were trying to get the message across of how the money was, where it was, and to kind of educate the community, because you can't get them there. But if you have something that they can look at and kind of understand where things are at, it's kind of nice. And so I brought something just to leave with you to look at another time to kind of show for people to kind of understand. They take all of those numbers and stuff and they put it in here, but then they also kind of say, well, here are all the different, these are all the different funding mechanisms that we have. It talks about summarizing some of the items. It talks about just kind of, it's really kind of a concise area. It shows the funds so that you can say, well, I'll just take the Bryden Avenue one. I'm sure there's a fund somewhere set up, fund, you know, 212. And 212 now has, you know, $1 million in it. I'll just throw something out, I don't know. You know, and so that way you can kind of look at, you know, where are some of the things going on. And I think it helps council members in particular when they're looking through so that they can see, well, we have all these ones, we have funds in it in particular, or when they do their master, you know, when they did their master list, you can kind of see over a 5-year period where it was and where the funds are, and then you kind of get a summary of that. So it's all in one place so that when council members are kind of like, okay, I gotta make a fast decision here. Okay, we're looking at bridge maintenance and repairs. Okay, we have HUDA funds. Oh, we already have 45,000, 100,000. We just need a little bit more. Okay, how about, let's get this, it's been moved up on the priority, just one, maybe instead of number 7, it's number 8. Can we then work with Director Johnson and move, you know, 20,000 there to meet that? You know, it's a better way for the community to understand. It helps you kind of make decisions. It helps this group to understand, like for pavement management or whatever, where things need to go as well. And then, you know where the funds are and how much money is in that pot at that point. And so I think that type of education is like really critical for the community to understand. And it kind of then helps so that they're not distrustful, if that makes sense. So they can see, well, yes, that money is actually going there. Yes, this fund already has that much money. Just like you were just questioning, yeah, well, how much money is in that pot, you know, and, you know, how do we know, you know? So I think that would be a very kind of something to think about going forward, is kind of a way to take all of this and kind of put it into a summary document. The back part of what they do is just like it's like a sheet, and it shows all that, so it shows like a project description, map, and all that, but, you know, those don't really change. But the front narrative is like 20 pages, and they update it accordingly to kind of have people understand where the money is at this point and what's going on. Because sometimes, like you just said, you get a really big grant, well, then you can show all those, you know, bicycle pedestrian ones, and you can say, well, it's gonna get to these 3 of those that are the most critical based on your, you know, where things go. So that's just kind of a, you know, it seems like the 4 questions you just got right now is, where's the money and how's it, you know, what's the status?
Right.
So,
Yeah, I'd be very interested in seeing that. I think that would be helpful, and it's been requested a few times that we provide some type of summary like that. I think we've always just said, you know, take a look at the CIP.
I'll pass it down.
Discuss that
Just
with
have that one.
But
I did the first 50 only.
yeah, I think definitely see value in that, making.
It makes decision-making a lot easier on their level.
Yes.
So basically, a document, when they present at our regular council meetings, that is more simplified for the
Oh, yeah.
viewer.
It's all condensed down and it tells you the funds, how much has been put, what projects they're currently working on, what projects have been accomplished, and things of that nature, so you can say, oh, okay, you know, because you want to celebrate successes as well. So you
Right.
want to show that, oh, we've accomplished all these ones, and now, you know, they're working on this one, or no, we're not working in these ones. And so you can kind of see, you know, and that went above and just beyond just the transportation ones. They included like water treatment, marinas, you know, they included everything and it's all down. So that way you have a snapshot of every CIP, you know, from parks to everything all in one document. You know where the money is at that point in there. And it's
Yeah.
very easy to read.
That's our probably biggest struggle is I think we have a lot of, especially when it comes to budgets, is that the public, especially online, is trying to grasp it and understand it. And then I've even gone through and like maybe read a comment and was like, that's not what we were actually talking about. And so complete misunderstanding of the situation. So
And
that is a struggle in all areas that we have.
Right,
so.
and that's why I said, because the CIP is so big and it's so much dollars, that's why when you were doing the budget presentation, I said, don't present the two at the same time. You should always, you know, do your CIP totally separate from your operating budget, and then walk through all of that, and then do your operating budget later. They started, a couple of the cities I worked with, they start doing just that presentation like a couple months before the budget process even starts. So that way you understand and what
I've heard of that
everything is
also.
done, and you can see what they've accomplished and stuff, and it gives you kind of a foundation to go forward.
Okay.
Good information, thank you, Laura. Yes.
Quick question, really quick, related to that. So it sounds like that's like a project-based accounting, so you're, like, was that, there's a name for that.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. So, just so I can kind of understand how this works. So you said that the Main and D Street project got moved up on the list. What does that do? So do each of these projects with the capital cost estimate, do they have their own dedicated fund and you're building that up over time? What impact does that actually have to change something on this?
It
on this
doesn't, the CIP is not directly tied to the budget. I mean, there is no, you change this to one, we've gotta go change the budget. It's not correlated to that directly. And so you see those dollar amounts and I'm struggled trying to get with what Laura's talking about in that it's easier to do, it has been easier to do with water and wastewater and sanitation, those budgets. A capital project can be anything from like $50,000 pump upgrade or whatever, and I can show those in a budget presentation specifically to capital. I don't have anything near $12 million, and so, you know, it would be a really short, concise document to say, here's our funds, here's the street, and they're not tied to those, and so there's so much money, as you can see on those dollars. We have right now, because we're in the infancy, we have a capital fund. It's not tied to any specific project at this point. Right now, the mayor is looking at this and saying, we have a capital fund, what's number one? And not having, you know, like Luke already said, 21st is being addressed on last year's capital fund. Bryden is in the STP realm, so the most obvious candidate for drawing those funds off the capital fund is 21st Street. And I probably haven't done a good enough job, and I might do something a little different this year to identify that when I present this at the council in February.
And not everything has like a project-based one, it's only when something has started, so
Yep.
The council wants to do these two projects in particular, so funds start going into it, so you open a project account on that. So you know that you have $100,000 in this fund. It also helps when you're going after grants and stuff like that, you already have funds in an account to prove to them that you're serious about. So it does actually also help with grants.
Yeah.
Because,
Because you can say, you know, when we apply, you know, what is it, the old Tiger grant, whatever it is called now, you know, a big grant. And so we go to the feds and they say, well, how important is Maine D to you? Well, it's been number one in our CIP for 14 years in a row, and we've got a balance of $5 million or whatever it is
And the
in
council's
design
already
and
funded,
this
yeah.
yada, yada, yada. And so that solidifies your applications as you try to get more funding and well, I'll stop there.
So is that the intent, is to move to a project-based accounting system, or is it?
I think, there's no way that these dollar amounts are ever gonna be able to be more digestible. It's just, we're always gonna have far more capital needs than we're gonna have for budget. And so I don't know, on an annual basis, we will be able to kind of have the project drive the capital budget. It just won't, it will be in such a small, some of these, and I've done these tables, where it is shown the blues and the greens, and this one was funded last year and it's closed out, and this one, here's our 5-year work plan. We did that, Stormwater has that exact thing, that it's got a 5-year work plan. We're gonna tick through these projects over the course of 5 years, but they went a little bit longer, so it's a 7-year project. That's what we would like to do, but on transportation, surface transportation, we're not gonna have, our 5-year work plan is 21st Street, or it's probably our 10-year work plan.
But sometimes you unexpectedly, you're applying for a grant, and some of the bigger ones, they give you like a 3 or 4 year period of time. So you can plug that into the document saying, okay, we've already funded this, we've got this amount, we're short this much. And then that also kind of helps the council saying,
Yep,
here it is, we just got it. So
Yeah.
now we need to kind of reprioritize for this budget cycle or to go into a meeting to get, special money
And I
or
think
something.
that we should do a better job, staff can do a better job of doing that. And it's not necessarily the top 10 where it's $20 million. It's, we got a safety grant and we've got, $250,000 for this sidewalk. And we're in design in 23 and construction in 24, and that shows our, where the funding's coming from, where the project is going, where it's identified in the CIP, and when it's gonna close out.
And that also helps because they'll say which ones are in design. Because a lot of people don't understand, what does that mean, it's in design? And so it gives an explanation of, in design means this, so that the project, because some of those designs take a couple years to get done. I mean, I don't think people understand that part of it too, so it's not that this isn't just a wish list, that there is work behind the scenes. And that's kind of what that's saying too, is that these are being worked on right now. And that kind of helps you going, oh, wow, because you wouldn't kind of know that from this. So that's kind of like a narrative for you. Anyway,
And so
just a thought.
unless there's any other comments, we're already 12 minutes after that hour,
I
so
thought we were going to about 1:30, we were trying to,
1:30.
1:30, yeah.
I was hoping for 2, but I think it's 1:30.
Yeah, it's-
I think that we need to move on, because we still have to get Jason here, right? Okay. Oh, it's like, there's a wait.
I would, if you just have 1 minute, I would like to just briefly run through kind
Please.
of some of the questions that were asked.
Please do.
How we use this document currently. So the CIP ID is pretty self-explanatory. The project type just helps us if we're looking for, say we want a bicycle path, we could skim this document and whichever one we come to first, we can take a look at it and then go, hey, we could fund that one. And typically it's a top-down approach. So we start at the top, and if we've got a funding source, we go and we find the first project that matches, we grab it and we try to go. Same thing with location of streets, the boundaries of the project, those are self-explanatory. The descriptions help us out as we're trying to figure out those things. The estimates are in there, and you can see the estimate year is also recorded. So if you're ever looking through this and going, I wonder if this is scaled to $2023, well, this one was done in 2020. We all know in 2020, since 2020, things have changed a lot. So that number, if any engineer is gonna look at that and scale that in his mind to today's dollars. And then the rank here is down the right side. So again, the thing I wanna highlight is how we use this document. If we come across a funding source that we weren't expecting, or a grant that we didn't know about, or we get awarded one, or we're looking for an award, we'll come to this document and start at the top and start coming down. And that prioritizes our projects based on whichever funding mechanism we might come across. That's today's current use with that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, I guess you're up, Jason. Are you ready for us?
I'm ready, I don't know if the computer's ready.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, I can hardly read this. Where is it? Go to that.
Oh, no,
Yeah, it's in the packet, but it's too little to read.
Oh.
The back page.
Oh, were you talking about this?
Oh, that's the map. Zooming. If you're in the packet online, pull it up. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You know, you're here.
It does that to me all the time. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Like right when I'm about to start a
If you'd
meeting
like
too, and
me
I'm
to-
like,
While he's getting set up, I can talk about the upcoming.
Thank you,
meetings.
please do.
Okay, jumping ahead, while Jason's getting set up, regular meeting, polling the, I guess this was not my item, but who's gonna be here for the November meeting? Is everybody gonna be? Should be.
I should be.
We have quorum, okay, check that off. Stormwater drainage system utility public outreach event, or events, October 19th. Haley, is that at the both community center? Yes. So it is the community center.
That's community center.
There's one at noon, let me pull up my.
Oh, that was what I was going to make sure. Yeah, the open house, October
Yep,
17th.
yep, so we're
Yes.
holding two separate ones,
There
one
it
during the
is.
daytime and one during the evening. So one is at noon, right?
Noon to one.
It's at
It was confusing when the event came out, because it says date October 19th, and it says time all day, and then it says time detail 12 to 1, 5:30 to 6:30. I'm going, so is it all day,
That
or
says
is
the
it?
17th.
This says 17th, how come it says 18th?
This says 19th on the thing that came out, so I don't know now.
Counselor Schroeder, that's for the wastewater treatment plant.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
that's-
it
that's-
is, isn't it?
That's
Yes.
your tour.
That's my tour, I get to go.
Yep,
guys
so
don't get to-
this group is invited to attend and learn more about the stormwater. I mean, it's stuff that you guys have already heard, so you should have plenty of knowledge about it, but it's more of a public engagement, open house, so they can get a better idea of what the concept is behind the utility.
Okay, so we have the 19th, which is
Workout
at
down,
the
I forget.
community center, right? There it is,
Yep.
okay.
All right.
So we have a forum, and we've got that, okay.
is
Are you
that,
ready?
I think so.
All right, perfect,
Can I
thank
ask one
you.
question before? Is that the tour, is that public tour too?
That's
Or
public,
did-
yep.
Oh, this is,
Yeah, I was just curious how, if I brought family along.
No,
gotta wear it
bring
close.
the family to the wastewater treatment plant.
My son would actually be
I
like
know,
super
yeah.
into it, so I was like, I bet
My
you.
daughter was bummed this morning that she didn't get to go to my meeting at the wastewater treatment
Aw.
plant.
I didn't get that one, so I'll have to look that, so October 17th, okay.
Closed toes shoes.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Jason Thompson, I'm the street maintenance manager for the city of Lewiston. My presentation's nowhere near as data heavy as Luke's was, so. I'm here to talk about the storm winter response plan. So if anybody's looking for snowplows, we have a bunch for sale. I know you guys are. I'm kidding. That rumor's been going around for a lot of years that we got rid of our plows. That is not true.
Every time the snows, oh, they stole them all.
I said that to my husband, he's like, are you sure? I thought they stole them. I was like, no, they told me they did not sell them.
That's not true.
The horse's mouth.
Actually, we have proof. All right, here's some
Pictures of them being there.
of our equipment during the drier season. We presented our newest plow in the center of that heart there is 361. That's our new plow truck and sander. We just bought that last year. It's only been in use for one season now, so we're still playing with it, trying to figure it all out. But we are currently adding equipment to our fleet, not taking it away. It's been a common thorn in our side for the last few
Interesting
years.
to wonder where that rumor started.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't here when that rumor started, so
It's been that long.
it's been
The
at least
room-
4 years. if-
The rumor I've heard about the rumor was that Lewiston, Maine, the city of Lewiston, Maine gave up their snow removal
Oh.
program and had the county do it. And somehow that transcribed itself to
To us,
Lewiston,
Lewiston.
Idaho, that we just sold them.
That's the rumor I heard as well, and that happened 10 to 15 years ago, so it's been going on every year for a lot of years.
Some of those rumors, you know, they're like, it'll go away, and you're like, every year.
Yeah, this one resurfaces every year.
Every year.
So this is just some of our stuff that we've had out in the field. So we have, the plows are kind of our workhorses of the winter response. Typically, we don't get our plows out too much in this valley. Our weather doesn't really support it, luckily for us. Most of our winter season can be handled by a de-icer, so that's a lot safer and a lot easier to manage. Just more pictures of our plows in use. Last few years of my winters here. So. And then during the summer, we kind of plan our routes ahead of time, trying to get everything ready for the season. We have our priorities set based on 1, 2, and 3 priorities. Priority 1s being our main arterials, things that go by schools, hospitals, steep grades. Those are the areas that we attack first. Then we move on to the second priority roads, which are going to be the collector roads that lead to those arterials and hospitals and schools. And then the third priority would be basically residential or a lot lower volume streets. Most of the city falls into the priority 3. We spend a lot of time working on priority 1s and priority 2s. Based on the level of the storm event, we may not get off of priority 1s for the entire event, just depending on how fast it's coming or how cold it is. If we start feeling like we're catching up and we move on to priority 2s and we get another big bout of snow that comes through, we're gonna reshift and we're gonna go back to priority 1s because those are our main priorities. This is our map of the city. You can kind of see the priorities based on 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2 would be the red and the yellow. The purple is actually the state roads. Everything else would be the priority 3 routes, the ones that aren't actually identified.
A couple of questions that I have on this map. You've got priority 1 shown for like 11th Street, that steep hill that seems like it always gets closed down, and same with like Miller Grade. Are those priority 1s just to get them closed off?
Yeah,
right
because
off
they're
the bat?
safest closed. Certain situations when the weather's at a level where it's just not passable, that's our priority, is to get those closed.
Vineyard's on there, right?
And then
Vineyard should be on there as well. Yeah, there's about 5 roads, I think, that get closed every time we have a decent cold snap.
Sure. The hospital route doesn't seem to match up too with what they have for the route. Because as far as the way it's drawn, it doesn't match the actual route signs going on 7th and 6th.
I'd have to look into that. This was done by my predecessor, so, I mean, if there's changes that need to be made, then we can definitely look at it and review. Yes.
So, between priority 1 and 2, sometimes people who are colorblind, it's a little hard to see between the red and yellow. Just
Okay.
having a husband that's colorblind and sometimes trying to deal with him, and we argue, and I know it's just a vision thing for him, so maybe just highlight out the colors. And then when I was looking at the actual response plan, it identifies this map as the Public Works Winter Storm Event Map, and this says sand and snow, so maybe add that this is also the Winter Storm Event Map, or just so that the two correlation, and I have it written down here so I can give it to you, so. But yeah, that was,
So on the colors I know this map's hard to see, but when you actually look at it on the city webpage, you can zoom in and the colors become much more easily identifiable at that level.
I don't think he zoomed in when I showed him, so I'm just saying.
And like I said, I've only been in this position now for 2.5 years, so if there's changes and things that we need to look at, you know, I'm here to learn, I'm here to help. You know, my number one goal is keeping the city safe, so.
Yep, it might not hurt. I know even some of the roads getting out of the country club area are pretty steep, and there's accidents around there at times.
Yeah, and we do have 29th Street out in the country club that does get closed every year. Because it's not safe for us to plow it, let alone for the public to use it.
They closed, SLE, they closed that second entrance because it's so dangerous when it gets all iced over. Yeah, there are areas.
And then, so, you kind of mentioned it a minute ago, the winter storm response plan. So these are our guiding documents for staff. The city, years ago, and this probably should be updated, there's not a lot that's changed since then, but 1999, we developed an administrative policy for the city, which kind of lays out the foundation for what these other documents are. The winter's hazardous road condition response procedure and the City of Lewiston winter storm event response. So one is kind of a overview for the public, and then the other one is more of a staff guiding document to tell the staff what their responsibilities are. If you guys want to dig into that, we can. Otherwise,
Sorry, I was just going back to the map. You said someone else created the map with the
yeah,
colors
Keith
missing?
Bingman and his staff at the time.
Do you know if there's a reason they picked the colors that they picked? I know that sounds weird, but
I don't know.
almost seems like a red, yellow, green would be like more, like red's important, yellow's like medium, green's last of red. Just because it's easier to distinguish between the colors when looking at the map. That's the only reason.
Yeah, I don't have any idea why they picked the colors that they did.
But just some feedback.
Yeah, no, it's all good news. Like I said, I'm here to learn, so if there's things that you guys can bring to me that I haven't looked at, or I've been too busy focusing on other stuff to look at, then extra set of eyes are always helpful.
Do you feel that you would like to update those documents?
The documents, the two, I don't think we need to. We may need to look at the administrative policy a little bit closer, just because it's so old. I mean, it's 24 years old now, so.
Signed by Jan Vassar.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
It's,
Um,
and there may not be a lot of changes in it, and that's why nobody updated it until now. I don't
Okay.
know, but there may be some things that we could look at, for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe that's something to review when, on your Sunday morning when you have nothing to do. Yes.
Well, again,
Yes.
in there on section 2, objectives of plans on the plan, it said, establish a committee to help develop and coordinate. And I put a question mark. I said, what committee? Is that an internal committee or an external committee? So I didn't know if there was a committee, or is that us now?
That's you guys.
Okay, that's us
Okay.
now. Okay, so we
Well, then-
might update that or something. But yeah,
maybe we
I
should
saw
do
that. I
that.
was like, oh, who's that? So. And then how does this plan work with the county? I mean, how do you share information, to coordinate, like clearing or something like that? How does that work? Because that was one of my questions towards the end when it talked about maintenance and stuff, and how does that work with the county?
Typically with the roads that, that we share between county boundaries, so like Gun Club would be an example.
Right.
If we're working Gun Club, we go all the way to the bottom, even though our boundary stops where it stops. We continue to go to the bottom and treat their area as well.
Okay,
And they do the same going up the hill, because we can't really turn around a plow truck in the middle of the road.
right.
We have to go to an intersection or somewhere big enough to support it. So we both kind of work together on all of our roads that overlap like that.
Okay.
That's more of an operational thing. It's not so much documented anywhere.
Right, I was just for clarifying on here, I think I wrote just a couple notes there, just saying that in coordination with Nez Perce County or something, because right now it sounds just, so I think that was the only thing I added was,
So
maybe-
one of the coordination efforts that's kind of hard to do is if we get to a point where we're inundated and we need help, we do have the county listed as a source that we could rely on to help out.
Okay.
But usually if we're inundated, they are as well, and they have their priorities that probably don't align with ours. So we have to take that into consideration as well. But we do have some other vendors that we can reach out to provide some support as needed.
What is your staffing levels look like in handling roads during the winter especially?
So currently, I actually just got this from Jake today. So currently we have two, so when we get into a snow event, we go to 12-hour shifts. And we have two shifts that are staffed with 5 staff employees and then 1 supervisor for each shift. Typically, right now we're down 3 individuals on the crew. So we are struggling to get staff into those positions, just like everybody else is right now. We did interviews last week, so we're hoping to bring a couple of people in within the next couple of weeks. We're just but when that is all solidified, we have 6 staff members and a supervisor for each shift, 24 hours a day.
You say 6?
Yeah.
And you're funded for those 6?
We are funded for
Okay.
those positions, correct?
And if you had the staff that you, like actually full staff funded for the positions that are open, do you feel like that would be sufficient enough?
As long as the equipment is all running, that's really all we can man because of the amount of equipment we have. There are some things that we could put out, other pieces of equipment that aren't necessarily snow equipment, but they can be used for snow response.
Okay.
But just as far as de-icers, this is about all we can handle without adding to our fleet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's anything else you guys have, questions or comments?
Any questions?
The only comment is it'd be nice to get it up, the map updated if you could at some point here, and I don't know.
Yeah,
Which would be it.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that. I have,
And if you wanted us to help on that, Dan Vassar, Kate will take a shot at it.
yeah, and I don't know, not writing one of those policies since I've been here, I'm not sure what that all entails, but yeah, we can definitely look at updating that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your presentation because snow season is coming.
It is coming, and I think, based on weather, climate.
Oh, no.
Is that because it's warmer out?
I just think the way the weather patterns have been going the last few years, and then with the changes in El Nino, La Nina, the shift this year.
we're supposed to have a heavy El Nino this year.
Yeah, I heard that.
It's gonna be a challenge.
Okay. So since we need to move on, I thank you very much, Jason, for that.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you here again. We didn't have any items moved from the consent agenda. Upcoming meetings, we've cleared that. Everybody says they're going to be here. And then the stormwater drainage system utility public outreach is October 19th. Moving on to commissioner comments.
I forgot to ask something during that Public Works meeting. It's okay if I ask it now.
I think they're still on the payroll.
Okay. Are we gonna have, kind of like the Public Works thing at the fair, where you kind of have some visual representations, are we gonna have that there at the community center for that?
For the stormwater,
Yeah,
we will have different stations. So we will have, like, I think the stormwater coordinator and myself will outline, kind of talk about capital projects and where the money will go towards. We'll have utility billing people there talking about what the bill, how the bill's processed and what they'll look like. We'll have hopefully city councilors there to answer any questions. I don't know if we'll have, I haven't really talked with Haley in the group of, I don't know how much we'll have for, like, it's not intended for little kids to play like Public Works Day, but
Right.
we may have we'll have all the information that we've put together, educational flyers and all that. But I'm not quite sure how much we'll have for hands-on stuff, but there'll be multiple stations for people to
I
get.
know the one station that, from the Public Works day with the kids, the one that I did think wasn't only for kids, but I felt like it was a good representation for even adults. I think it was the big table where it kind of show where the water goes and then.
Yeah, we've
That's
got,
the storm table.
yeah, well, we've got I'm not sure if we will have that available or not. It was broken last year, so, but we've adopted it. It was over at Asotin County and they didn't take care of it, so
Oh, I
we
see.
took it back over, so.
Well, if it is
Anyway,
feasible to try to do something like that, I think that would be super helpful to give some good visuals of
Yeah, I
what,
think we,
really what it.
because what we ended up doing last year was we made it smaller and just a simpler version of it.
Okay, yeah, and that worked, I think, well. I mean, I understand not having all of that, because some of that isn't as necessary, because it's more geared towards kids, but there was a couple things that I felt were still good for even
I think,
adults.
between the flyers and some visual stuff, I think we can probably put something together.
Thank you.
Right, commissioner comments.
Quick one, shout out to Daughters of the American Revolution on our service day. We helped over at the Rose Garden in the afternoon and helped prune roses for a couple hours over there as part of our service. That was a lot of work, so, but yeah, we worked with the Public Works crews over there, cutting roses and
Wow.
helping get everything
Oh,
else
so
down,
Public Works, Lisa's out to prune my roses?
Nope.
How
No.
awesome! I gotta get a list.
You wanna dedicate your yard to the right of way.
It was the
That was the quickest
the
notes
North
I've
Rose
heard.
Garden over there, so
Anyways,
anyway, we did we spent our day over there.
Okay, well, that sounds like a fun day. Any other comments or additions or whatever? Staff liaison comments, we can do that. Any future agenda items? I know that we have a list
Yeah, I
of
was gonna
future
say, it looks
agenda
like,
items.
I was gonna ask about the speed limit, but I see here November 8th, we're suspected to go over the speed limit / traffic engineering.
Yes.
So I think that was one of the things that I was pretty heavy on.
And traffic calming.
And
Yeah,
traffic
calming.
calming.
Both of those that day.
Traffic
Yeah.
calming.
So that works for me, which was my only, and then did we talk to police department? Are they good with, do they have that date in mind to come to that? Cause I know they were wanting to come talk.
Yes, they were, they wanted to be
Okay,
re-invited.
Yeah,
okay.
they have
Thank
been,
you.
okay, thank you. I just
One
wanted-
last item is our letter for WashDOT
Oh.
regarding the bridge.
Bridge.
We
Yes.
still need to get that letter here so that we can approve it as a, have it
Okay.
written up so that they can start clearing that over there.
Yeah,
And who was going to do that?
I believe staff was gonna take a stab.
okay.
So, but yeah, cause it's coming up to that time of year, trying to make sure runoff and everything goes through.
Okay, all right, so we're on track. Anything else? Thank you all for being here today. This is great.
Close?
Yes, we do need to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're a
Always feel
little
like a
late,
pirate.
but
Aye.